We're looking now at the Excel spreadsheet that has been modified from Brisbane News SubtlexUS um, corpus. So Brisbane News collected subtitles from 8,388 films from the US and then collected and collated all the different word forms. So what we see here is not word families, but word forms. So the most frequent word form was U. So there's a total frequency in this column here. So we can see there are 2,134,713 times that the word U was used in any total in all the films. All right, so the next column over, this shows how many of the films out of the total 8,388 in which this word form occurred. Now this column here shows us the lowercase, that is the small letters. So the U occurs a total of over 2 million times, but only 1,500,000 or so are in lowercase. So most of the time this is not going to be important unless we want to distinguish between a proper noun, for example. So for most of these, it won't make a difference. And if you look at the column over here, the word is shown in the form that it occurs most often. So for example, what usually is occurring at the beginning of a sentence, and so it is capitalized. So the form that you see here in this column is the form which is most common. So it occurs most often in uppercase. That means it's going to show here as a capital W. So if you look down here, you can see a few others like no. So those would be very often the beginning of something somebody says in the movie. They say no and then something else. So most of the time it occurs at the beginning of a sentence, and so it's capitalized. So for example, if we look at, let's look at the word ray. So you can see that ray is capitalized here. So ray could be a common noun like X-ray or sun ray, but the fact that it's capitalized most of the time, so of the time that it occurs almost 5,000 times, but it occurs only 240 times in lowercase. So that means probably of those, almost every one of the occurrences is the name Ray, short for Raymond, rather than the common noun Ray. So even though this is very common, it's not necessarily quite as important as it may look. All right, so that's what the usefulness of seeing whether this is capitalized or not. For the most part, that's not. It's going to be pretty clear. So for example, Paul is very obviously a proper noun. You can see that it occurs, does occur in lowercase 7 times. I wonder if that's actually a typo. So probably when the person typing the subtitle accidentally didn't capitalize Paul 7 times. All right, so if we go back up to the top, let's look at a couple of the other columns. So this is the frequency it occurs in lowercase, the number of films it occurs in. Interestingly, only the word the occurs in every one of the films. So you can see the percentage. So this is the raw number over here. This column here is the percentage of films. So 100% or nearly 100% for the other words. And then this is the number of times it occurs, a number of films it occurs in lowercase. So you can see how widespread the word is. So it may occur many times in one film. That's not necessarily as important, but if you see it spread out, it's occurring in thousands of films. That's obviously a very important word. All right, and a good reference is this one right here, frequency per million. So if you're comparing how often something occurs in one collection of words to another, the frequency occurs per million is a really good standard to measure it by. Right, so this gives you an idea of some of the most important words. A couple of notes here. You'll see the letter M there by itself. This is not just the letter M, this is the abbreviation. So if you said I'm like that, the letter M here, that punctuation breaks it, is a break in the word. So the I'm, even though it's one syllable, would be considered two words. I, and then the apostrophe is a break, and then the letter M. So if you're looking at a word family, the letter M would be considered part of the be verb. All right, same thing over here. We have DON. The fact that it's lowercase, so you can see it occurs most of the time in lowercase, and some of those others are probably the beginning of a sentence where you say, don't do that. So, but it could be also Don, the proper noun Don, but that's probably much less common. All right, the fact that it's shortened like this means that it's part of don't, and we'll see T down here below. If we look down, we can see the letter T by itself. See if I can find it quickly. Did I miss it? Let's see if I can search for it. All right, so right here you can see the letter. Right here you can see the letter T is number 9. That is the abbreviation where you see like haven't or don't. All right, we'll also see the double L down here. That's the abbreviation of will. So this is a good reference if you want to look and see how, if you go down through the list and see which words you are not familiar with, that would be good. Those be good things to study, especially if they're at the top. Now it does go down to 60,000. This collection has every word that occurred in any of the films if it occurred more than one time. So the ones that occurred one time, those are not included in this list. They're obviously not terribly important. But anything that occurred more than one time is on this list. So if you go down, you'll see smaller and smaller frequencies. So we can go down thousands of words, and then you'll begin to see words that may not be as important. All right. So it's a nice little resource that they put together. If you want to look at the original that they put together, their website is right here where it says source.